Hey, everybody, I'm Regina Bryan, and welcome to the Women of Empowered Living. My guest today is a living, breathing example of not taking no for an answer, perseverance, and resilience. She has been in the beauty industry for 30 years and a salon owner for 21. She's also a John Maxwell team member and a very active member of our community here, because that's right, she's one of the Fab Four faculty teaching team members, as well as a member of Paul's sales team. I've known for quite some time that I wanted to talk with her, and I am so glad we connected because she's pretty spectacular. Christine Zielinski, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Regina. I am so honored and excited to be with you here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. This is fantastic. So where are you joining us from today? Where in the world is Christine?
I am in Robbinsville, New Jersey. So
okay, where's that?
It's west. It's West New Jersey, kind of sort of by Princeton. I'm about 15 minutes from Princeton, New Jersey.
Okay. That's a landmark we can all relate to.
Yeah.
Oh, Christine, I'm excited to have you because when we spoke, I learned so much about you. You have such a rich history. I mean, 30 years in the salon beauty industry, and you took that passion and at some point you merged that with entrepreneurship. So what led you to go from beauty professional to entrepreneur?
Well, I think it started before I ever entered the beauty industry because I grew up with parents that my dad was a carpenter and he owned his own construction business. And my mom was the #1 insurance agent in Prudential.
Wow.
So, and she was studying Bob Proctor when I was a kid. So both of them really introduced me to entrepreneurship at a really young age.
Wow. I mean, you were like personal growth almost coming out of the womb,
Yes.
certainly as a toddler.
Oh, yeah.
Where did the love of hair come from with your parents not being in those industries? How did you come to want to do hair and beauty professionally?
When I was in school was not a strength. I never liked it. My mother said I went to kindergarten. On the first day I came home and I said I quit, and I quit every day until I graduated high school. So I was just not a great student. I was the type of student that had to be active and doing things and engaged and connected to people. So I had a great social life. And at the age of 12, I colored my hair black at a friend's house, along with her bathroom and every other thing that was in the house. And my inspiration was Joan Jett. I wanted to be Joan Jett at that age. And so
Not about you.
so to me, she was like my idol. And that really changed a lot for me. It did a lot of, it revealed a lot of courage inside of me. And from that moment on, I started to do all my friends' hair. And I saw what it did to people. I saw that it gave people confidence. It gave myself confidence. I love the feeling that I got after I did someone's hair and they gave me this sense of happiness and joy that came from it. So I really enjoyed that. And so I went to cosmetology school right after high school.
Wow, I can really see that. I didn't think about it from the perspective of the beauty professional or the hairdresser, but we all know how great we feel when our hair is just been done by a professional and you walk out like you own the world. And it is just the best feeling ever. And I know I have felt that way. And I never thought about that in terms of the hair professional and what that did for you. So
Yeah,
that's sort of
absolutely.
the passion and the motivation to go that direction.
Yeah, I think most hairdressers that I meet, I really feel like are healers. They
Oh my
want to help people feel good about themselves, and they want to transmute that feeling. So absolutely.
I have never thought about it that way before, but you're so right. You sit down in that chair and you start talking about what you want, or you have a photo with you, and there's just something about that relationship that's happening through that process. And then when you see the final product in the mirror, I mean, I have been just wowed by hair professionals before. Sometimes disappointed, usually wowed. And so I just never really thought of it that way before. So, how long were you in this industry when you said, you know what, it's time for me? Or what was the catalyst for you to say, it's time for me to open my own salon? Because you came from an entrepreneurial family.
Yeah, I spent about 10 years with Vidal Sassoon. So as soon as I graduated, I started working in Manhattan, and
Oh,
I started working for Vidal. And it was there that I really understood the mastery and the craftsmanship of hairdressing. Vidal was an amazing leader. And so he paid attention to every detail within the business. And so that was my first experience pretty much in this industry. So I felt very fortunate to be pulled in that direction. And I just wanted to be the best that I could be. So from there, I actually moved to California and started teaching at Vidal Sassoon Academy in Santa Monica.
oh wow. And what and just I gotta pause for a second. What was it like? Because you worked directly with the Vidal Sassoon, like the
He was
Vidal
the
Sassoon that I see on the hairspray bottle.
well, he was the owner of he sold the company shortly after I
Okay.
started working there, but yes, for a short time I worked for him. And it was special. The people that I am friends with today, I could say, were very like-minded. They wanted to be the best at their craft. It wasn't easy to go through the training program. I
Mhm.
probably went through it with about 50 or so apprentices, and there was about maybe 5 to 8 of us that really graduated from the apprenticeship. So it was very hard um, road. And then I started teaching. And when I started teaching, that's when everything changed for me,
How so?
because I just felt this. I saw what it did to the people that I was giving my knowledge to. And I felt the success that they were having, which brought me, just like when I was a hairdresser behind the chair, it brought me really joy, satisfaction. And I wanted to do more of that. I wanted to make a bigger impact on people. And I think that was my turning point after working in the academy for a few years and thinking to myself, well, I feel that influence and impact, and I want to go bigger. And so that's when I decided to leave and open up my own salon.
And did you start with your own salon in California?
No, actually started, I moved to New Jersey, and I started in an independent training sort of academy on the road. And so what I would do is I took my talents and I knocked on salon doors, and I asked if, I just said I worked at Vidal Sassoon for 10 years. I would love to train your team. And that's how it started. I just knocked on doors.
Wow. So you just got in your car and you knocked on doors offering your training and your teaching services.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. How did that go? How were you received?
Great. I mean, it went very, very, very well. Most of the salons were happy to invite me in. I think I even a couple times went in and did free trainings. Uh, and I started to then help salons develop training programs. So what I would do is I would sit with their team, and we would develop an artistic team. So instead of just teaching their young talent, I would develop their more senior talent to then implement a training program. And so I did that for about a year and a half before I opened the salon.
And you opened your salon in that same area in New Jersey?
I opened in Red Bank, which is a little bit more east of where I grew up. And it's about 45 minutes south of Manhattan, towards the beach. And I didn't directly open the salon. I actually went into a couple of salons and I let them know that I wanted to open a salon. But in our industry, in many industries, you know, it's sort of cutthroat. Like, why would they want me to come in? And then I would turn around and walk away. But I never wanted to leave a salon owner in a bad and have a bad relationship. So what I did was I told them up front, I said, in 1 year, I'm going to open my own salon. Would you be willing to allow me to build my client base and then take my client base with me? And in exchange for that, I will give you everything that I know.
That's really clever. How did that relationship go with building your own business while in someone else's business, but yet you were trading off and doing teaching and training? How did that go?
She's one of my best friends today.
And so when it was time to leave, you took your clients with you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I did all my own marketing. So I didn't, you know, what I didn't do is I didn't expect her to give me anything.
Right.
And I think that's really what helped our relationship, maintain our relationship. I did all the work. And so I was willing to knock on doors, go out and get clients, you know, put ads in the paper, talk to people on the street. And so I really didn't utilize her business to get my business. I gave more, as much as I could, to her, because I was grateful for the opportunity to be able to do that.
I mean, what you just shared with us is like a life lesson in the science of getting rich, giving more value.
Yeah.
And I think that's the place you came from, which is probably what made you so successful, to knock on doors, trade off services for space, for building a business. And then the day came and you opened that first salon. What was that like?
I could remember my dad passed away, but my dad was a contractor. So my dad and my brother came in and we did all of our own construction. So we did it from the floors to the ceilings to the lights. We did everything together. So that was pretty special in itself. And then because Vidal was such an influence in my learning, I wanted to follow in his footsteps. So what I did was I never hired from other salons. I never hired experienced stylists that had client bases. What I did was I took each person that worked for me at a cosmetology school and I taught them everything that I knew. And I would just hire one apprentice at a time until the salon was filled. And at that time I had 11 chairs.
Wow. And I love this, Christine. I mean, I love your mindset around this. And I guess that goes back to, like you were saying, that training from Vidal Sassoon.
Yes.
That love of mastering, that wanting to be your best and wanting to not take from other people to build your business. I mean, that's really clever, because I think most people think, I'll go hire the best. You know, I'll try to lure the best people in the area. And you had another idea. So did you feel like that sort of paid off in crafting and creating the salon and the culture that you wanted?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And there were many times where it was very tempting to hire somebody down the street that could bring me a $3,000, week book. But it was, for me, if I would have done that, it really would have dismantled the trust of my team, because when everyone is trained the same way and they're all on the same page and they have the same standard, then we respect one another. When someone comes in from outside in a different culture, they're raised differently, and they're just kind of thrown in there, it causes a lot of dysfunction.
And so talk to us a little bit about that business. Were you the best in the area? Talk a little bit about your successes and challenges with this first salon. And then what led to was there a next salon? What was your next step after that?
Well, directly after I opened, about a year in, I discovered that I knew a lot about my craft and very little about business. So I went into I I joined a company called Strategies, which is a salon business growth company. And it was actually the week after 9/11. So I got on a plane the week after 9/11 and flew to Chicago. And I wanted to go with a couple of my team members, but they were afraid to travel at that time.
Mhm.
And so they were starting a coaching program. And the room was filled with salon owners, with managers, people that had been doing it for 20 years. And I was very intimidated because it was just me. I didn't know how to read a profit and loss statement, a balance sheet, a statement of cash flows, like anything that had to do with the financial. And it was super intimidating because I was terrible at math. And so to me, I was sitting in this room with about 500 salon owners thinking, okay, I'm way in over my head. But I knew that if I just held on, like I did my apprenticeship, I could learn. So they offered a coaching program. And at the time, the coaching program was $10,000 for 3 years. And I was like, I don't have $10,000. But I thought to myself, I cannot afford not to do it. So I took my credit card to the back of the room and away I signed. And I started my journey on being a business coach. And that journey was understanding how to build a cash flow, understanding profit and loss, understanding statement of cash flows, balance sheets. And then also the importance of building systems within your business. Like, how important is it that we have a system for everything that we do so that we could develop a standard in our company? And that's when I really started to understand E-Myth. That's when Michael Gerber, we studied the E-Myth at that time. And that's, I was very fortunate, I feel like, to be part of that.
And how long were you on this sort of upward trajectory? And were you met with different professional or personal challenges along the way? Because we hear a story like yours and we're like, must have been smooth sailing from there.
No, it was not. Not at all. I don't think that everyone believed in my way or in my belief system. So that was very challenging. I decided to run my company hourly and team-based for the first 20 years. And what that meant was I didn't pay up on commission. I paid hourly based on performance. And so there were a lot of people that came on and they really were challenged by the way that we approached, our pay structure, for one. A lot of people challenged the fact that they knew more and they didn't feel like they wanted to go into this training program. So I've experienced walkouts where, unfortunately, I could remember, actually, it was Good Friday in 2005, and I had just moved my salon from one location to another location. And we expanded a bit. I had approximately about 12 stylists, and I walked in on that day and I had 3 left. And they decided to walk down the street and open a salon a mile up the road. And it was a devastating moment, but not one that I wasn't prepared for, because other mentors in my life that were in the industry said, not if, but when you have a walkout, you'll understand, the challenges of this business and how important it is to have your team trained and developed so that the next in line can be ready to go. And I didn't have John Maxwell in my life at that time. I didn't have Paul Martinelli in my life at that time. I gained a lot of bitterness, a lot of resentment, and it shot down my self-esteem, and it built a lot of insecurity as an entrepreneur. And I could remember those were some of the most challenging times. And in 2005 is when I hired my first business coach, which was a client of mine.
And wow, I mean, you went through a lot with that walkout. That really impacted you, not just professionally, numbers, and as a salon owner, it just impacted you personally. And your
Absolutely.
self-esteem took a hit, your confidence.
Yeah, it was because I didn't understand at the time. I was giving so much. Because I was the one developing my staff, and I was giving them so much. And of course, I wanted from the bottom of my heart to see them grow and develop. And, I love them. Like, I love them with all my heart, and I wanted to see them prosper. But what I didn't realize is I could still love them.
Wow. And so at what point, because you were saying that you just hired this business coach, but then at what point in this journey did you come aboard the John Maxwell team, and did you meet Paul? What year did those things start happening?
So that 2005 was when I had my first walkout. And then
your first meeting, there was another?
Yes.
Oh God, I was afraid you were going to say that.
And I moved in 2012. I expanded the salon again, and it was actually during Hurricane Sandy. I was in the middle of a build out, and all of our electric went down. I had so we actually got kicked out of our location because our lease was up and our landlord wouldn't let us stay. And so in the middle of a hurricane, we have no home. So our salon, actually, the person that I told you about in the beginning, who became a friend of mine, she opened her doors and allowed us to come in and work in her location.
Are you kidding?
No, for almost a month.
Talk about an abundance mindset.
Yes.
Wow.
And then during that time, the exact same time, I decided to hold a hurricane drive and help Sandy victims. And so I gathered 150 hairdressers at a hotel in Asbury Park. They opened their doors and they allowed us to take over the whole entire hotel floor. And I invited 150 hairdressers and a few salons across the country. And we raised about $40,000 for Sandy victims from the hurricane. So It was a crazy time.
And so you got through Hurricane Sandy, you got through the first walkout, and where in that journey did you connect with the need or just going toward the John Maxwell team? What propelled you to go that direction next?
So in 2014, I was having some major team challenges, and I noticed a trend. And the trend was every time I got a staff member to the 10, 11, 12 year mark, well, it was probably about the 11-year mark, they wanted to go somewhere else. And I didn't have a walkout, but I did have 4 team members that had been with me from the beginning that wanted to go to another salon. And
is that common in your industry? Because I just have no knowledge about this. Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
But what was common, I think, in my industry is the lack of leadership development. Mm-hmm. And so I had a great coach at the time, and what I would have her do is I was trying to build a leadership team. So I would have her come in, sit at every staff meeting that I have and give me feedback. She would also come to my leadership meetings and she would coach me afterwards on what I could do better to how can I be a better leader? Like, how can I run this meeting more effectively? And so at that moment, I was already reading John Maxwell books and putting PowerPoints together for my meetings. And so he was already an
You
influence
were
in my.
already incorporating John into your staff meetings before you were a John Maxwell team member.
I was creating workbooks.
I mean, and you really had not, as I guess Vidal Sassoon taught you a lot about mastery and some level of personal growth. But I think you hit on something really important. In the hair care industry, like other industries, there's not a foundation of leadership training. And you were trying to create that at your salon and for others.
Yes. And
That,
at the time, it was difficult because I was forcing learning on people.
oh,
And
wow.
what they wanted to do is they wanted to develop as hairdressers, and they didn't see that leadership was a part of that process. And so when I was learning it, I was introducing it John's way. And what I didn't discover at that point of time was that I had to translate it into my way so that they can understand it. And so it was very forced and mandatory. And so that was some of the
Did that
mistakes.
create some resentment among the staff? Like, why is she putting this on us? It's something extra. Leadership, I don't need that. Was that creating some sort of resentment in the salon?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And it wasn't because I think I labeled them. These are just some of the mistakes that I made in the beginning. Was a lot of assumptions about what their challenges were, a lot of labeling them as maybe unmotivated or not wanting this. But it wasn't that. I don't believe it was that. I think it was more of a language barrier and a more of a lack of understanding from a leader, from me. And I was developing in ways that I hadn't before. And so when I went to the first John Maxwell event.
And when was that, Christine? What year was your first event?
2014.
Okay.
I remember seeing on the screen, you must go within or you will go without. I think it was Christian Simpson's.
That's exactly where that comes from. That's where I heard it, from Christian.
I could remember I think I gasped when I saw it, and I think I had a few tears in my eyes, and I thought to myself, okay, I'm in the right place. I'm here, I'm in the right place, and I'm with my people. And so it was such a growing moment for me, because what I realized was everyone that was at the table was so different and from so many different countries, but we all were alike. And I could remember John saying, you need to have it, you can't have a 10 dream and have a 4 team. And I thought that was the moment in time. It was like this like shining bright star for me.
Day.
I said, okay, I have the wrong people on my ship. I have to go home and I have to take them off. And I didn't do it gracefully. It wasn't something that I was taught on how to let people go. It was ugly, and I'm not my proudest moments. But I will say I knew I had to do it.
There was so much transition after that first John Maxwell team training. What were you going through personally at this point, as well as with the salon? You've got a lot going on. The John Maxwell team moments, they really hit you. And it created something within you personally and professionally. What was going on personally with you at that time? And what were you thinking about all of this change and transformation?
Well, I was still holding on to resentment from other walkouts. So that was challenging. Plus now these people are leaving. So I was stuck in a victim mentality. I was really in scarcity mode at the time. My dad was very sick. He died of mesothelioma. So that was a very hard transition. It was at the same time. So I do think there was absolutely no coincidence how I found John Maxwell during my dad's passing. Like, it was a blessing. And what was also a blessing is when I met Paul, because I met Paul Martinelli at that time. And I went through Turning Point in 2016. And it was exactly when I needed to go to Turning Point.
How so?
So
What did you get out of Turning Point that was exactly what you needed then?
it was forgiveness. It was get rid of resentment. It was, those things that were actually that I was holding on to, grasping. It was time to allow them to let go and forgive myself, forgive others, and to be able to just move forward. Like, let's move forward.
And that's the most powerful lesson ever, is that letting go. What did you see after that process? So take us forward into Turning Point was 2016, and you let some things go. How did that transform you and your business? What was kind of on the horizon after that?
The biggest thing I think at that moment was, okay, and now it's time to allow other people into my business that are more like-minded, like and that took a little bit of time, because I think some people really want to be, and but they're not ready.
Right.
And I think what I've discovered is I have to allow people the opportunity to be ready when they're ready. And
ooh, that's huge.
so that was probably my biggest shift. Like, I'm going to be here teaching it. I'm not going to change my ways because you're not changing your ways. So I'm going to continue, because I think one of the mistakes that I made as well was I stopped my growth for other people to wait. Like, let me wait till you catch up. And that wasn't going to happen. So I said, okay, so I'm going to continue to grow. And in 2017, I opened my second location.
Wow. So
And that's
location
when
number two, how did that go?
I hired Paul Martinelli as my private coach. So that was that happened right at the same time, because I was making a big investment. It was a 2 million square foot building in Homedale, New Jersey, which is about 20 minutes away from my first location. And I was scared. I was really scared. And so Paul just helped me build that confidence and know that, if I had this thought and this dream kept coming to me, that it was mine, and I needed to take a step forward into action.
And so you had the first location that was growing and thriving, and then you opened location number two.
Yes.
And so we all know what the last couple of years has brought to all of our lives with COVID. How have you seen, for you personally, your personal hairstylist business and the industry in general? Did you guys suffer quite a bit in COVID? What was that like?
Yeah, COVID was very difficult. In 2017, we opened the location, and we were in a brand new building, and that building wasn't really fully occupied yet. It was still 2 million square foot, and it was still under construction. So by the time COVID came, we were just about open, and the building started filling up, and then all of a sudden in March we were shut down. So it's and a lot had transpired in that time. I got very sick. I was exposed to toxic mold, and I became very ill at the exact same time that I was building this other location in 2017.
Did you have any inkling about this illness, or did that just really come into your awareness in 2017 while this new second location was being developed?
I was sick with chronic fatigue, and I had a lot of challenges with an illness, and they would say I have autoimmune, but I really didn't know what it was until I was exposed to the mold. And then I found out that I have what's called SIRS, which is chronic inflammatory response syndrome. So you
were diagnosed in 2017.
Yes, after I was exposed, I was hospitalized, and then, you know, thankfully, I was working with Paul the whole time, and I could stay focused on helping my business get open. I was very thankful that I had systems, processes, and people in place. So, and then at that time, I was on the move because I wasn't allowed to be in any water damaged buildings,
I
and
was going to
so
ask, how did this change the way that you lived, like in your home and in your business, having this type of diagnosis?
it has been very challenging. I moved 11 times. My first
Oh my God.
uh my
Since
first
2017?
yes. And my first location of my salon, actually, when COVID closed down and we closed our doors for 4 months, when I went back in, the damage had been from mold had just taken over the location. So I got very sick when I went to do the build out. So I ended up having to close that location down. And I transferred my employees from that location, which was our flagship location. So remember, that was $1 million business that I had to close down and then move over to this new location. So a lot of challenges came, like we didn't qualify to get the PPP for that location. So because we closed down the business. We qualified for our other location, but we only had 3 employees originally in that location. So can you imagine having to pay a payroll of that size without any help? And there was nothing we could do. So we just had to, and I say we because my team,
Right.
really, my manager is a hero, and she really just stepped up to really help. Because I'm no longer allowed to go into the salon world. So I run my business completely from home.
So right now, and since 2017 with this diagnosis, now you can't go in there at all.
No, I can't be around any kind of chemicals, candles, any kind of fragrant at all.
Has that uprooted like your home environment and where you live? You said you moved 11 times. Are you in a place now that you're able to tolerate with your illness?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is the first time, and I wasn't when I first moved, believe it or not. When I first moved in, I had to get the house completely clean. So it has to be like 100% sterile. And I have to just make sure that everything is clean.
How is traveling for you? Now that you say all of this, I'm like, do you travel, Christine, right?
Yeah.
How is that for you? Does that aggravate your illness more?
It does, but I have to ask a lot of questions. And I've learned that making sure that if I stay at an Airbnb or a hotel, that I ask if they use any candles or fragrances in the room to make sure that they don't clean with anything that smells, like Windex or, any
So it has to be
popular
fragrance free.
Yes, fragrance free.
Wow. So Christine, you've had such a long entrepreneurial journey and a personal journey. What would you say to the audience watching and hearing some of your story today? What would you say are the keys? Because you faced some incredible challenges being in the beauty industry during COVID these last couple of years. You have faced your own personal illness. For people that are trying to build and grow in any industry, what are a couple of things, a couple pieces of wisdom or practical advice that you've learned that you can share?
I would definitely say the key for me was to build systems.
Mm-hmm.
The foundational, piece was definitely to build systems, to invest in people.
I love that.
I think a very key component to my growth has been Susan Scott wrote a book called Fierce Conversations.
One of my favorites.
I couldn't live without that book. And she has what's called a beach ball in that book. And I use that in every meeting. I use it when I coach my team. So that for sure has been one of my biggest lessons, is to always use that and not assume, because I really truly don't know.
That we don't really know other people's perspectives until we ask.
Yes.
That's
so
huge.
Stay curious. Stay curious.
And I want to end with one final question, Christine. You've been so open and so honest about all these pieces of your life. What does an empowered life mean to you? You're a faculty member for EL, you're on the sales team, you've been through this whole entire journey of being an entrepreneur, being a mom, being a personal growth. So what does an empowered life look like to you?
I think for me, it's being all that I can be so that I can help others be all they can be.
I mean, can it be said any better than that? That's pretty powerful. Oh my gosh, Christine, thank you for spending so much time with me today. Your story fills my heart because it's full of ups and downs and challenges. And the lady that you've become out of all of it has just been such a blessing to this entire community. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure being here with you, Regina.
Thanks everybody for joining us today, and we will see you very soon. Bye-bye.